Last video, I asked you something. Would you rather see a dead character stay present in spirit or come back as a lookalike who investigates their own murder? Today, we're looking at the second option because Kkavyanjali did something even stranger than killing off its hero. It killed him and then brought in a man who looked exactly like him to solve the crime. By every rule of soap opera writing, that should have felt cheap. Instead, audiences didn't roll their eyes. They got completely hooked. Here's why it actually worked. You've seen this trope before, and you probably groaned when you did. A character dies, and a few episodes later, someone who looks exactly like them shows up with a flimsy explanation, a long-lost twin, a distant cousin, a coincidence nobody questions. It's one of the most mocked devices in television, and for good reason. Most of the time, it doesn't feel like storytelling. It feels like the writers ran out of ideas, or the network didn't want to lose a popular actor, so they just found a workaround. And once an audience clocks that the lookalike is a shortcut instead of a real plot device, they stop trusting the show. The emotional stakes evaporate. Because on some level, you know the writers are just protecting their lead actor's job, not telling you an honest story. It becomes a punchline instead of a plot twist. So when Kkavyanjali killed off Kavya and then introduced a man named Soham who was identical to him, that should have been exactly that moment. The point where viewers checked out and called it lazy. It wasn't. And the reason why is actually a masterclass in how to use this exact trope without it feeling like a cheat. Here's the insight. The lookalike trope only feels cheap when the coincidence is hand-waved away. It stops feeling cheap the moment the show treats the resemblance as a mystery to be solved, not a coincidence to be ignored. Kkavyanjali doesn't just drop Soham into Kavya's old life and expect the audience to accept it. It makes the resemblance itself part of the central question we is. Why does this stranger look exactly like the man who was murdered, and what does he actually want? Soham isn't a convenient replacement. He's an active investigator with his own motive, and the why do they look the same question becomes something the plot has to earn an answer to, not something it skips past. Once you see that distinction, you start noticing which shows use this trope well and which ones use it lazily. Let's go through exactly how this one pulled it off. 1. The love story is set up as star-crossed before anything else happens. Before the murder, before Soham, the show spends real time on why Kavya and Anjali can't simply be together. Theirs is a love story built on obstacles, not ease. That matters because it means Kavya's death doesn't just remove a character, it removes the resolution the audience has been rooting for. You're not just losing a character, you're losing the ending you were promised. 2. The murder becomes an emotional wound, not just a plot event. Kavya isn't written out quietly. He's killed, and the show lets Anjali's grief sit on screen instead of rushing past it. This is important because it means whatever comes next has to compete with real earned grief. If Soham had shown up too quickly, it would have felt disrespectful to what the audience just watched Anjali go through. The show makes you sit in the loss first. 3. Soham is introduced with his own motive, not as a convenient replacement. This is the single most important structural choice in the whole storyline. Soham doesn't wander into Anjali's life by chance. He has his own reason to be investigating Kavya's murder, which means his presence in the story is justified by the plot, not just by the fact that he happens to look the part. That one decision is the difference between lazy twin trope and genuinely earned mystery. 4. the show makes Anjali and the audience sit with an uncomfortable question. Anjali is drawn to Soham partly because he looks like the man she lost. Instead of ignoring how uncomfortable that is, the show leans into it. Is this real feeling, or is she just projecting her grief onto the nearest available face? That question doesn't get answered quickly, and it shouldn't. Sitting in that discomfort is what makes the eventual resolution feel earned instead of convenient. 5. The ending only works because the mystery gets solved first. Anjali and Soham do end up together by the finale, but critically, that resolution only arrives after the murder mystery is actually solved and the truth about Soham's resemblance is explained. The show makes you wait for the answers before it gives you the emotional payoff. That sequencing is exactly why it doesn't feel like a cheap swap. The plot has to close before the romance can. If you're the kind of viewer who actually notices why a twist works instead of just reacting to it, that's what this channel is built around. This week, we're staying in exactly this lane. I've got a video coming up ranking the 5 secret identity twists that 2000s Indian television absolutely could not resist, and yes, this show is on that list, right alongside a couple of others you've probably already guessed. Subscribe if you don't want to miss that one, because after this, we're jumping into a completely different comparison.